for me, yeah, I'm competitive. And I think like people take that competitiveness negatively because I take issue with people doing things the wrong way.
You know what, Jeremy? We're gonna have
It's a good question. I'm gonna tell you this, Richard. I'm gonna give you some credit right now. No one's had the balls to ask me that type of question before.
Hey,
everyone always sugarcoats shit with me. You know what I mean? Like wants to be my buddy, not ask the hard questions. And I've told people this before. Like, you can ask me the hard questions. The honest answer is yes. I'm very competitive, but not to a point where I would intentionally squash someone else's shit. You know what I mean? Unless you're not doing things the right way, then I take issue with it. And I think everyone should.
Rich Ortiz here with the fighter's voice, the only voice that matters. You have that fighter on you right now. You have that. Talk about Mexican Independence Day. We can call it Teddy Atlas here in Las Vegas, Nevada. You heard it from the champ himself, simply knocking out the competition. Not Rich Ortiz here with the fighter's voice, the only voice that matters. And like Eddie
Lopez, because Josh Taylor is
the 4th division world champion, Mikey Garcia.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm your host, Richard Ortiz of The Fighter's Voice, the only voice that matters. And like our guest, Jeremy LUCHAU, the founder of 559 Fights, we're simply knocking out the competition. We got a lot to talk about. We're going to talk about how the Hall of Fame felt being inducted. Also, you know, that 100th fight that he put together from 0 to 100 and now over 100, what his plans are and what his roster looks like and what's his whole take on the UFC and the amateur and the talent here in the Central Valley of the MMA capacity. Enough said. Ladies and gentlemen, our guest, Jeremy LUCHAU. How we doing, Jeremy?
Good. Thanks for having me. How you guys doing?
I'm doing good, man. I hope I didn't chop up your name too much. Did my best.
Yeah, all right.
How do you pronounce it?
It's LUCHAU.
LUCHAU. Oh, okay. As in like a cow, as in moo.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Well, then I'll make sure I got that. I'm going to write that down right now. I'm going to make sure I get it right next time. LUCHAU. All right. Well, Jeremy, let's jump right into it, man. I mean, congratulations in the Hall of Fame. Congratulations in being married. Congratulations in your 100th event. You got a lot going on, man. What's it like in the life of Jeremy LUCHAU?
It's funny. I'm just one of those guys that's passionate about MMA, and I do it 24 hours a day. You know what I mean? There's no turn off to this job. You know, so it's been an exciting run. You know what I mean? Lots of honors have been bestowed upon us and the family over the last year, and being able to knock out 100 events with a show is something special, and it was an honor to be able to do that and do it and share that experience with my staff and my family and stuff like that. So yeah, it's been an awesome year.
Well, Jeremy, I mean, let's keep it 100. A lot of people say, hey, Rich, I like what you're doing in the Central Valley, or, I think you're one of the top guys in the Fresno area or so forth. And here's what I say, Jeremy, I parked my car in Fresno. I'm thinking worldwide. And for someone to say 559 Fights is the best in the 559 area, bro, after your 100th show, I say you're one of the best in the United States. Let's keep it 100, man. And you're being bashful and you're being humble if you really think about it, because a lot of promoters have tried to get there and there's been roadblocks. There's been, COVID, what have you. A lot of people haven't recovered from that. They haven't recovered from the roadblocks, and you were able to deal with personal concerns along the way. And so I say you're one of the best worldwide.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. And I think it's just a testament to being stubborn. You know what I mean? Stubborn, and it forced me to be consistent over the years and finding ways to do shows even when it was raining outside or we had COVID going on or whatever the case may be. Always trying to find interesting venues to work with, different places to hold fights. And most importantly, though, being able to stick with a good team, training a lot of people that were able to stick by my side and help me through all these trying times.
Well, let's talk about the very first event. Can you recall anything special? And how did you feel the night before and going into that event?
The very first event will always be, I guess, commemorated by we show up with the cage, I think the day before, and there's no instructions on how to build the cage. And we're all sitting there looking at each other like, what the hell are we going to do with all these pieces? And there's thousands of pieces around and we don't know what to do. So we have to get on the phone with the owner and you kind of step by step work through putting the cage together. And I just remember it was a miserably hot April event. And it was, I mean, probably was only 80 degrees outside, but it felt like it was 120. You know, it was outside at Hanford at the fairgrounds. And, you know, it was just something new. You know what I mean? Obviously, at that time, I promoted a lot of fights at Tachi, but, you know, this was something special. It wasn't. It was our money that that you know, Joey and I had raised to put the fight together. You know, it was something that we kind of had to, you know, rely on ourselves for. We couldn't call the casino and ask for any additional help, or, you know, we're going to go over budget or whatever the case may be. It was just work through it and put on the show, you know, and it was a lot of fun.
You know, I can imagine you had so many mental notes afterwards and so many, okay, we'll try this next time. And, oh, that part didn't work. And when did you have it in, when did you have the complete blueprint and say it was in, and I know you're going to answer, you're going to say it was never in cruise control. When did you have it in cruise control where it just spoke for itself? It just invited itself. It promoted itself. It became exactly what you wanted, your masterpiece.
I mean, you're kind of right. You kind of stole the words out of my mouth. Like, to me, it's never in cruise control. Maybe from the outside looking in, it's always in cruise control. But if you would be privy to the conversations behind the scenes with my staff, I mean, I'm very critical of myself. I'm very critical of the product that I put out there. I want to say, like, you know, immediately after all events, I reach out to everyone that's helped with the event, been a part of the event, whether that's fighters, coaches, everybody. Ask what I personally could have done better, you know, what my team could have done better. I mean, I'm at a point now where I'm so picky about it. Like, I actually have a document that all my staff fills out post fight to let me know every little detail about things we could have done better or changed, or, you know, a new wrinkle that they see. So, I mean, I think the consistency and the cruise control comes from just me being stubborn, I guess. You know what I mean? Like, no matter what, we're always going to get through it. I don't want to cancel anything. If I'm going to lose money, I'm going to lose money. You know what I mean? I'm going to figure it out. I got to find a way to get better. But always behind the scenes, I'm always looking at things that we could do different, better. And each show and every show I learn from, and each show and every show there's a new and interesting wrinkle that pops up and something like that. And Christian Prenup, who I believe is, you know, probably one of the best promoters ever to walk this earth. You know, he always taught me, you know, when I was with him, that, you know, you never find out what type of promoter you are until, you know, the shit hits the fan, but nobody else knows the shit is hitting the fan. You know what I mean? You're fixing all the things behind the scenes.
Shout out to Christian, man. One of the best. You know, he was missed when he left, and, you know, he went on to do bigger and bigger things, and, you know, Bellator, and, you know, the list goes on. He's been a professional from day one, and yeah, shout out to Christian. What's the best advice that Christian did give you, except for, you know, advising you about the promotion part?
I think one thing that I learned from Christian was to was really, like, kind of like keep my family close. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, like, yeah, we're thinking about the fights 24/7, or we're thinking about this, that, and the other thing. And I always thought it was really cool that he would say, "Hey, Jeremy, make sure that you go to your son's wrestling tournament." You know what I mean? "Hey, Jeremy, make sure you spend a night with your significant other." You know, things like that. He always you know, even at a concert or whatever event we were doing, he would ask about our families and things like that. And he was always really, really about the family stuff. So I think that's always kind of grounded me in the fact that, you know, anyone who knows me and's been around 559 fights has either saw my kids there, my daughter sings the national anthem, you know what I mean? You know, just being able to it to be kind of a family experience for everybody.
You know, just think that the same respect in the same plateau that you put Christian Prenoff, somebody's going to say the same thing about Jeremy LUCHAU. They're going to say that one day because there's going to be a young promoter and you're going to be seasoned. And, you know, a lot of that is going to be more of you, but you're also going to take a little bit of what everybody's been advising you. Has that time come yet? And are you ready and prepared for that?
I think that, you know, yes, the time's kind of come a little bit. There's a lot of promotions that come into California and call me and I consult with, and I tell them how I do things and, you know, stuff like that, and help them kind of get on their feet and help them bridge some gaps and things like that. So, you know, it's an honor to be called in those situations, you know what I mean? And,
Sure.
and be looked at as somebody who's you know, I don't know, an elder statesman in the game, you know what I mean? So, yeah, I mean, it means a lot to me, and I don't take it for granted. And at the same time, you know, when I'm advising people and consulting with these different shows or management groups or whatever the case may be, you know, I always let them know, hey, like, these are things that work for me. Maybe they don't work for you. You know what I mean? Maybe they don't work in your market. You know what I mean? Maybe your market's different. You know, these are just things that have happened to work for me throughout time. And if you use them, they work, give me that feedback. And if they don't work and you made some changes, let me hear that too. You know what I mean? Because maybe I can make some adjustments to things that I'm doing and make my shows a little bit better.
You know, I know everybody goes through this, especially when they have a great product. I'm sure everybody understands, okay, we don't take it personal when we're setting up. The week of the event, we're all going to go at each other. But at the end of the day, we're all going to sit down, have coffee or have a drink together, one of the two. Nobody take it personal. Do they already know when Jeremy LUCHAU has that fight face on and that mentality? Because you transform. I've talked to you before. You're a very sensitive person. You got a great big heart. And then I've seen you day of events. I seen that transition where he passed by. He didn't say hi to me. No, it's not that. He's looking through me. His mind is spinning. Everything's calculating. It's like you see a calculator. You know, you see 3 + 3 or what's that's the way your mind is spinning and moving like stock market. Does everybody understand when Jeremy LUCHAU has his fight face on?
I don't think everybody understands, but throughout the years of being called a dickhead and an asshole, you know what I mean? And
those are compliments.
You know, being insensitive to people. Yeah, being insensitive to people. I've learned now to, like, you know, when I get a new staff member or I hire somebody, and still even to the staff people that have been with me forever, like, I try to remind them as often as I can, like, I love you guys. You know what I mean? I want what's best for you guys. Please do not take anything that I say personal. You know, I may yell at you, I may freak out, you know what I mean? But it's just me wanting to get things right and do things the right way. And I don't always handle the heat of the moment the right way, you know what I mean? But the one thing I pride myself on is going back after the fact and making sure that I talk to my people and they understand, you know, where I was at in that moment and what was going on and what we could have done better as a team.
Very well said. Jeremy, you're now looked upon as an entrepreneur. I mean, you have a roster, and we're going to talk about your roster, UFC roster, professional roster. Do you remember being a part of your first signing for your first pro fighter? And what was that like?
You know, I when I first started kind of helping with management and stuff, I helped a couple different management groups, kind of consulted and sent some guys to some different places and some different faces and stuff like that. You know, I do remember, like, when I left Tachi and I first started working with Jason House, like those early years of us getting guys into the UFC and signing guys and being parts of their journey. You know, it was a credible experience. You know what I mean? Jason and I always talk about Tachi, and we always talk about, you know, all the local events that we would go to and where we would find people. And, you know, we show people all these old fight footage that they've never seen before. You know, so yeah, I always go back to those days, you know what I mean? And it's funny because we joke that, like, how much more fun it was back then, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, it's awesome having 116 guys in the UFC and being one of the biggest agencies in the country right now. But man, those days, like pulling up at Tachi and pulling out, you know, five boxes of supplements and stuff to hand out to guys and run around Tachi and go to the pool and, you know, do all those different things, man. Those were the days.
You know, now that you have that big roster and, you know, you've had your fighters fighting some of the biggest fights in the UFC, reflecting back as you just did, and now with the 559 fights, how do you choose a fighter to sign? When do you know that he's ready? I mean, do the fighter approach you and say, "Hey, I'm ready. Take a look at me," or because you're always a scout? I mean, your 559 event is like AAA baseball, and now let's come over here and turn professional. How do you determine which fighter has it? And even if you're not looking for a fighter, but he's convincing, "Hey, take a look at me." How do you distinguish the two?
Yeah, so for me, I've got a pretty good grasp on what Sean Shelby, Mick Maynard, the UFC, what kind of athletes that they want. You know what I mean? And what kind of athletes I want to groom. Usually, it's stone cold killers. You know, when people tune into the UFC, they're looking to watch guys that are trying to knock people's heads off. You know, ground and pound their head through the mat. You know what I mean? So usually you could tell right away the difference between a mixed martial artist and a fighter. They're two very different things. I could almost see them immediately. And that's not to say that the mixed martial artist won't make it in the game. But a fighter has something inside of them that's intangible, that can't be taught, and is often not duplicated by anything else. They just have something in them that allows them to finish fights and to really, really go after people and try to put them away. That's obviously the very first thing that I look for, which helps me. You know, like that's like a big check mark. And then, really, honestly, the second thing is character. I'm looking for guys that are going to do their paperwork on time. I'm looking for guys that are going to get their medicals done on time. Guys that are going to show up on weight. Guys that never are pulling out of fights or have a bunch of excuses for things, or, you know, guys that are able to, you know, have problems with their girlfriends and have family issues and be able to figure out ways to train and fight through things. You know what I mean? You know, there's a lot of intangible things in this game that go a lot further than just talent. And you know, Jason always says, you know, talent often takes people to a place that their character is not ready for, you know? So for me, knowing that that's something that he really strongly believes in, I look for a lot of high character athletes that the talent will be able to catch up to the character, if that makes sense. So, that's something that I look for. And then a lot of times too, you know, I know that there's athletes that are maybe on the cusp, you know what I mean? They're not doing exactly everything right, or hey, they have a glimpse of being special from time to time, and they haven't done it, but there's someone that's been loyal to 559 fights, and there's someone that's working hard, and I feel like, man, if I touch this kid the right way, and I speak to him the right way, and I continue to preach to him about the things that are right, he could turn the corner and be something special, you know what I mean? So those are kind of the three things that I notice that I look for in athletes.
How many fighters come up to you or blow your phone up and they just want your attention? Every fighter wants to be your friend because they want that opportunity. Does that happen constantly?
It's hundreds. All the time. Hundreds. I'll probably wake up every morning to 50 text messages. It's nonstop. It's nonstop with guys that want to fight at 559 fights. It's nonstop with guys that want us to manage them. You know what I mean? Can you take a look at my tape? You know what I mean? It's just hundreds of athletes, you know.
And what's your response to that? What's the daily? Okay, I got to answer this one. I'll reply to this one, or what? Out of the ones that you haven't scouted, out of those calls or those text messages, who gets your attention?
I try to get my attention to everybody. You know what I mean? I try to take a little bit of time to answer every email, every DM, every text message. You know what I mean? It's hard. And as you know, from the length of time sometimes that it takes me to respond to text messages, right? You know what I mean? It's not me sitting around watching TV. It's usually like, man, I'm in the thick of it. Whether, you know, I ask somebody, hey, you know, your record's not quite there yet. You know what I mean? I need to see you do some more work. Or, hey, you know what? You got a nice looking record. Could you show me some highlight tape? You know what I mean? I watch some footage on somebody, you know, or what, you know, asking questions, what gyms they're at, setting up phone calls, talking to some of the athletes on the phone, et cetera, and so forth. I mean, it could be a process, you know, but at the end of the day, that's where you find you know, a good example is like a Lupe Godinez, you know what I mean? I really believe she's going to be a world champion someday. she's somebody who would DM me persistently, and I was like, oh man, like what am I gonna do with this girl early on? You know what I mean? I wasn't really sure because we didn't really manage a lot of female athletes at the time, and you know, and I ended up having a lot of things in common with her. You know, her family is a wrestling family. She's a great athlete. She was one of the best people that I've ever worked with as far as doing things right, doing things on time, always looking to get better, always looking to improve. And it was from her, you know, sending out some messages. You know what I mean? It wasn't always me finding the athletes. Sometimes they found us.
Exactly. And those are the ones that are persistent and, you know, they don't take no for an answer. And they have that stubbornness that you have and able to be successful. You know, remembering back to your first events and in the blueprint, I got to give props to your artist, man, whoever this is, because you have one of the strongest and one of the best looking logos around the 559 fights. Was that the original one? How many did it take before you said, okay, that's it, we're going to keep it? Who created it, and how many minds put that together?
This is actually a really awesome story, man. I'm glad you asked this question. I went to high school with a guy. His name's Jason Wood. We played football together. He's a really, really good friend of mine in high school coming up, and he was a graphic designer and drew tattoos and he was just a really creative kid. And I don't know why, but for some reason when, you know, we started this, you know what I mean? I think I saw he was on Facebook and, you know what I mean? He was living in Thailand.
Oh, wow.
And I was just like, hey man, would you like to make some extra money? You know what I mean? Like I need a logo design and some posters and flyers done, you know, and he designed our first logo and did our very first poster and flyer. And he redesigned my logo again and just most recently redesigned my logo again. And he's a guy that still to this day has done all 100+ events for us, all of our artwork for all of our posters, wow, flyers, and things of that nature. But it's really just a high school friend that, you know what I mean, has really just like kind of, you know, he's just a really talented guy and really, really cool to work with.
Well, you know, before we start talking about, you know, the Hall of Fame, I think that's another bracket they should have in the Hall of Fame, a designer. You know, a designer or somebody put the costumes together, the shorts together, the gear together. I know there's a buddy of mine, Junior. I remember when he first started with the symbol, I got my own back. I got some of his first product, and he would actually, Jeremy, he would iron it on himself. Iron it on. Everything was ironed on. And now he's making stuff that's, I mean, from Canelo to Manny Pacquiao to a whole set in movies. And talk about, you know, when that ball gets going, that fireball, it's just nonstop for him. It went from went from night to day and just, but he put the work behind it. And he said, right, I'm / working with the WBC. And I said, oh, that congratulations. And here's my topic. He said, because you have to work with some kind of organization in order to be inducted into the Hall of Fame. And he wants to be inducted in the Hall of Fame as a designer. And talking about your guy and from day one, and he's still here. Those are the guys that nobody really gets to see. Those are the guys that are working behind the scenes, but yet they have that talent. And that's that awesome promotion.
Yeah, and something like that is thinking about people behind the scenes that have really worked for me throughout the years. Like I gotta give a lot of credit to Rocky, our old cage guy. You know what I mean? Rocky built the cage for probably 60, 70+ events. You know what I mean? Was a mainstay for us. You know what I'm saying? A mainstay at all events, and that kind of just, when you said that right now, kind of touched me a little bit, man. Like, you know, someone like Rocky was someone who was always around all of our events and doing a lot of great stuff. You know what I mean? He's off doing some different stuff now, but you know, he was like kind of like one of those guys that was the kind of heart and soul of the company, just like Crunchy. You know what I mean? All of our video work and highlights and all that stuff. You know what I mean? So we've been blessed with some people. You know, that stuck by us and did a lot of great things for, you know, spent a lot of years with us. Carrie Borba, who was one of our, you know, our first ring girl, and she was with us for, I gotta say, like 50 events, I believe, or something like that. So we've got a lot of people that have come through and been with us for a really long time, and they all deserve to be in whatever Hall of Fame there would be.
Very well said. Jeremy, how does it make you feel, not just when a fighter wins, but when you see his career grow, or someone behind the scenes, they started with you and now they're pursuing a career, professional career, and they go on to, excel in whatever craft they have. How does that make you feel?
I don't think there's no better feeling in the world. Like I tell people all the time, you shouldn't be doing this job if you're not going to be emotional, if you're not going to cry with your guys, if you're not going to stress and worry about things that are going on with them. I mean, I talk about Alex Perez all the time, you know what I mean? Local kid from the Valley that I've known since he was 15 years old, high school wrestler at Lemoore. Taking him from his first amateur fights, helping him, cornering him and mentoring him, throughout the younger part of his career, and having him, eventually, watching him fight for a world title. That was, I don't know if there's very many managers out there or people out there that start with a pupil from day one and go all the way to world title fights. So for me, it was something special. Each one of these guys I have special bonds with, you know what I mean? Inside jokes where if they ask me about my family, I ask them about theirs. I spend holidays with a lot of these guys, you know what I mean? They turn into family for me. So, even these local kids, you know what I mean? Jose Avalos, Christian Avalos, these guys, I love them like family. They're great people. You know what I mean? I couldn't ask for more out of this job. You know what I mean? It's just, man, it's crazy. You know what I mean? It's crazy that these athletes share their dreams with me, and I get to be a part of their careers in some small way. Sharing your dream with someone has to be probably one of the most intimate things that you could possibly do with another person. You know what I mean? So just these guys sharing their dreams with me and trusting me and doing some small things in their career has just been a blessing.
I can imagine how you feel, and I know that feeling. I've seen that feeling around. First ballot Hall of Famer Robert Garcia, he took Joshua Franco and Bam Rodriguez from the amateurs. I believe they were 9 and 10, I believe, and brought them all the way up. Josh Franco was able to fight for a unified world title after becoming a world champion. Bam Rodriguez is now a unified world champion and just broke the top 10 in pound for pound fighters of the best fighters in the world. So to take them from scratch and bring them up, Robert, you can interview Robert and ask him about other fighters. He's going to talk about him. But when you mention Bam Rodriguez or Joshua Franco, he just lights up like a kid in a candy store. As you did, I watched you when you were talking about Alex, and I can see it in your body language that, from all the way up, until he wins that bout, and being with him, cornering him and watching him excel at the highest level, it does a lot for a man. And it says a lot about the person that you are.
No, thank you. I appreciate it. And I think now about kids like Laz Maldonado, you know what I mean? I've known Laz Maldonado since he was 5 or 6 years old. I watched him wrestle every single weekend, alongside my son, and been his family's been kind of like a secondary family. It's just, there's just so many of these young kids out there that I've kind of grown with, and now I'm seeing them kind of excel in their careers and do special things.
We're moving up now. We started from the main event. Now we're in the middle, your first bout. What was it like putting together? There had to be almost a feeling of Christmas. When you get that Christmas spirit, everybody's moving along, they're smiling. Talk about that whole setup for the 100th fight, 559 fights, that everybody wanted to be a part of. I know there was an excitement. Was it a different feeling? And what did it do for you?
What I told my team when we first started kind of gearing up for it, that I just kind of wanted it to be another show. You know what I mean? I didn't really want to do too much like rah and things like that. But it was hard because my team wanted to. You know what I mean? Antoine wanted to give out some special awards, and it was just tough. I wanted to treat it like another fight, but everybody else wanted it to be a little special, and I conceded to them because they deserve it. You know what I mean? In the preparation for the fights, like I thought maybe at some point, oh man, I want this to be like a much bigger card than it was possibly, you know what I mean? Like more title fights and, more fighters that had bigger records. I wanted to bring back some like old vets to fight, you know what I mean? And some things didn't work out and go the way that I wanted it to. But in hindsight, I'm kind of glad that it went the way that it went, because like the actual card itself was one of those amazing events, and everybody showed out on the card, and everyone that fought on the card was deserving of that spotlight that they were able to have. So it was awesome for some kids to be able to make their debuts on number 100, or, you know, that had a few fights and get the shine of being on a major event like that. You know what I mean? So it was nice. You know what I mean? We turned a corner, and we did some, you know, some new fun things with VIP tables and VIP experiences and stuff like that. So overall, it was a great event, well ran.
You know, what was it like sharing it with your staff afterwards? I mean, the celebration or just the coming up, was there an exhale from you? Or, you know, like you said, it was just another event for you,
Yes.
but it had to be special. There had to be something, Jeremy, that just clicked inside of you. And I'm trying to pull it out of you. Was there anything that just made you feel like, wow, I'm part of this. This happened from day one, and look where we're at now.
You know, like afterwards, I just bolted back to my room, honestly. Like, I'm like, oh, it's over. You know what I mean? Like I do every event, and I just kind of bolted back to my room and let the guys do their things. But no, there was definitely certain moments throughout the night, you know what I mean, where, you know, I had my wife on my side, you know what I mean? I was able to share the cage with some people and give out some things. I saw some sponsors, you know, that have been there forever for us, you know, Bueno Beverage and their staff, you know, and a lot of it was just talking to Antoine, to be honest with you, you know what I mean? Just sharing memories with Antoine. It was, you know, it was special. I knew it meant a lot more to Antoine than it did to me. And that made it feel really good. You know what I mean? Because Antoine's been talking about 559 Fights 100 for like 2 years. You know, he had it like kind of mapped out in his mind where it was going to be and all these things, you know what I mean? So, you know, they were very excited about it. My staff was very excited about it. So that made me probably feel the best, you know what I mean? Just to have all their reactions to it and everything that they were feeling. You know, I don't want to say it was just another event because it was a milestone, but I feel like if I get too excited about an event, like that's maybe the day I should stop doing events. You know what I mean? Like I just going to keep trucking and just keep banging them out and just keep getting better and keep giving people opportunities and keep helping people. That's what I want to do.
Well, Jimmy, I can tell you, I've seen it.
I was probably thinking about 559 Fights 101, to be honest with you.
There you go. I was thinking of the next event, putting a date together and putting your ideas together.
Yeah.
I've seen you before. You do bolt out. You make sure everything's taken care of, and then you just kind of slide out. Besides your wedding, besides your kids' events, and, you know, the personal events to you, when do you ever sit back and just take it all in and don't leave and just like, wow, what event was that? What part of MMA life was that?
You know, I get a lot of chances to self-reflect and stuff like that. I mean, being an entrepreneur, I don't, you know, I have staff and stuff, but I'm not like working side by side with anyone. You know what I mean? So I get a lot of time to myself. I get a chance to look back at old fight footage or videos and things like that and reflect. You know what I mean? I do take the time the time to do that. You know, but a lot of my reflecting and stuff like that, and what I've had like the biggest struggles with in life is like I was a wrestling dad. You know what I mean? And like my wife, sometimes she'll catch me watching like old wrestling videos of my son, and she's like, "What are you doing? Are you watching a wrestling tournament?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm watching a wrestling tournament from 2015 because I just miss being at the tournaments and being around him, and you know that was kind of my where I got to shut my brain off for a little while and just like enjoy my family, you know what I mean, and stuff like that. So I do miss that, you know what I mean, of things is being around the wrestling tournaments and stuff like that. But yeah, I take time all the time to kind of reflect and you know, send out some heartfelt texts to some people and let them know, you know, a guy like Joby Sanchez, you know what I mean? I signed him really young, and you know, if Joby Sanchez wouldn't have signed with us, you know what I mean? That means Chito Vera wouldn't have signed with us. Chito Vera didn't sign with us. That means Brandon Moreno doesn't sign with us. You know what I mean? Yeah. So there's some very pivotal people that I can go back through time and say, man, like maybe people don't know this guy so well, but there's some things that he did for us in the agency that, you know what I mean, that changed our lives. You know what I mean? So I do make sure that I take some time to thank people and things of that nature.
You know, going back and forth, and I'm not getting personal with you, going back and forth. How does your wife handle Jeremy LUCHAU and Jeremy LUCHAU, the promoter? Because there's two different people. When do you turn it off? Even when you walk in the door, is it turned off or slightly gets panned?
Every day I get you don't talk to me that way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
She does a lot of work for the fights, you know
Yes.
what I mean? And I do catch myself treating her just like a regular staff member sometimes, which is a love-hate thing, right? Like she wants to be treated.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
She wants to be treated. Yeah, she wants to be treated like just everybody else. But at the same time, she don't want to be treated that way sometimes. So, you know, but she keeps me in line. She keeps me grounded, and she's a person that's motivated me to do things better, to open up my heart. A lot of times I'm a little bit softer now than maybe I used to be. She gets me to care about people's feelings and to understand other people's perspectives on things. You know what I mean? So I think maybe I would have stopped doing 5-on-9 fights a while ago if it wasn't for her. But she's really helped me like regain my my love and excitement for the sport and stuff like that. So she does a really good job of keeping me grounded.
What was that time like? Because I was going to ask you, was there ever a time that you just said, you know what, I'm going to take a break, or, you know, I'm going to change careers, or I'm not too sure. Was there ever a time, you know, a fork in the road?
COVID for sure. You know what I mean? You know, I wasn't ever really certain in my mind, like, hey, am I making enough money managing guys that I could stop producing events? You know what I mean? I just, you know, I didn't know. And when COVID came, and I was still able to survive and thrive, and actually I was doing really good. As you know, our agency wise was probably the best couple years that we've had in a really long time. And, you know, when it came time to return from COVID, I took a really long, hard look at if I wanted to continue to do 5-on-9 fights or not. And that probably lasted like 2 minutes. And then I said, man, I want to be the first fight back. You know? So it was like, hey, JT Steele from Camel, when is the first time that we can host an event? And he's just like, on this date. I was like, all right, put me down for that date. I want to be the very first show to come back after COVID, you know? And, you know, I don't think Antoine or my wife or anybody else would have let me quit either. You know what I mean? I've probably told Antoine I don't want to do this 1 million times, and he's always brought me back to reality.
That's good. You know, iron sharpens iron, Jeremy. This goes on to my next question. You kind of answered it too. Jeremy LUCHAU, are you very, as I can see, competitive with other promoters? Just your whole personality. Are you a competitive person?
Oh man, competitive. Yes. I would say I'm very competitive, but I'm very competitive, but I get really frustrated when people aren't doing things the right way. Right. I don't like shitty shows. It frustrates me. And I think people don't understand, like, why would you give a shit about another person's show? And it's because we share the same fans, right?
Yeah.
It's like someone watches your podcast, you know what I mean? And they come to enjoy your style of podcast, and then they go watch a competitor's podcast and they're like, this shit sucks. They're a little bit less likely to come back to your podcast. You know what I mean? It's like, you know, if a guy goes to a show and the show don't start till 9 o'clock and it doesn't end till 3 a.m, they think that's what MMA is about. Right. So then they look at my show and they're like, I don't want to go to 5-on-9 fights because that's the way MMA is. Like, that's just not my thing. You know what I mean? So for me, yeah, I'm competitive. And I think people take that competitiveness negatively because I take issue with people doing things the wrong way.
You know what, Jeremy,
It's a good question. I'm gonna tell you this, Richard. I'm gonna give you some credit right now. No one's had the balls to ask me that type of question before.
Hey,
everyone always sugarcoats shit with me. You know what I mean? Like wants to be my buddy, not ask the hard questions. And I've told people this before. Like, you can ask me the hard questions. The honest answer is yes. I'm very competitive, but not to a point where I would intentionally squash someone else's shit. You know what I mean? Unless you're not doing things the right way, then I take issue with it. And I think everyone should.
Well,
I think if you're a jiu-jitsu instructor, and you're one of those jiu-jitsu instructors that make your athletes go through many years of hard training to get their black belt, and then another jiu-jitsu academy opens up right across the street and they're just giving people black belts just for showing up, you should take issue with that.
Absolutely.
Because that's not done the right way.
Absolutely.
And that's just what I believe in my heart. When you're not doing things the right way, I'm not okay with it.
Well, I think me and you share the same dirt, and iron sharpens iron, man. We should have a cup of coffee because I know you don't drink, or a beer one day, and you'll watch me drink a beer because,
yeah,
you know, I get on our staff, but I love them. I love them to death, but I everybody has something to do. Let's get it. And I get irritated if the day of that I'm going to ring announce other events, I don't want to be talked to. Leave me alone. I don't want to talk to anybody. And I apologize in advance saying, look, if I don't talk to you tomorrow, you already know. So ask me all the questions today. I don't need the question that I've already told you 3 different times day of. And I don't answer the phone, but it's bugging me. Okay, is it something that's important, or what are we doing? So there's times too, I can understand that. I mean, you're a perfectionist and you're good at what you do. And I want people to push me further than I've been pushed before. I got my butt chewed out today by a Hall of Famer. And he said, Richard, look at the way you're labeling your podcast. Nobody wants to hear blah, blah, blah interview, blah, blah, blah fighter. You got to create it. You need more followers. You need this, but you got to put in the work. And then it was that nature, like, okay, I love you and everything's cool. Don't take it personal. But I couldn't wait to pay for the groceries because it put a fire in my ass. And I immediately started doing it myself. You know, you leave other people to do different things, but without communication is key in anything, in marriage, friendship, business, events, fighters. You know, it's key. And you can go a long way with the proper communication, even if it's the ugly truth.
Absolutely. I think learning to be able to take constructive criticism properly and growing from that is probably one of the better traits that you can have as a young adult or as an adult. Kids don't really take it too well, and that's understandable. But as you grow and mature, learning to be able to accept constructive criticism and really grow from that is really important.
I agree with you. Jeremy, tell us about the phone call you got, or the email, or the face-to-face meeting you got that says, Jeremy, you're going to be inducted into the Hall of Fame. What was that communication like? How did it make you feel? And what was it like telling your wife and your loved ones?
I remember I was upstairs, and Jacob Jeff FaceTimed me, and I was like, man, why is this guy FaceTiming me, you know? And I was just like watching a movie or something, so I just kind of forwarded it. And then he texted me and he said, hey man, I really need to talk to you. And I was like, oh crap, you know? So I came downstairs and I FaceTimed him, and he said, man, I just, you know, he was like, I had to make a really emotional phone call before you. And then I was thinking like, man, did someone pass away? You know what I mean? And then he just said, I just wanted to let you know that you've been inducted into the Hall of Fame. And my time at Tachi really didn't end on a nice note. You know what I mean? I was fired. So I've always felt like there's loose ends at Tachi. You know what I mean? It's always been kind of like that little love-hate relationship. A lot of love coming from my end, but maybe not feeling like the love was reciprocated. And in that moment, it just took a huge amount of weight off of my shoulders. I just threw my arms in the air and I started crying like a baby. It's pretty embarrassing.
I know that's who you are.
But it was just a really emotional time, especially for it to come from Jacob.
Yeah.
Jacob Jeff, when I started my journey in mixed martial arts, and I did the writer to fighter whole thing, I went to a WEC weigh-in, and I'm just standing in the crowd. I'm going to go talk to Reed Harris afterwards and get some information so I could write this story about the WEC for the newspaper. And Jacob Jeff stands next to me, and he's like, "Hey, you're the guy that's going to do writer to fighter." And I'm like, "Yeah, whatever you need, I got your back." I was just like, man, I don't know who this guy is. You know what I mean? He's like, "I really like you to come train with us." You know what I mean? Come train on the res, work with our team. You know what I mean? And I was like, okay, I'm going to start at Valley Fight Club, and I'm going to do this, this, and that. And he's just like, yeah, but if you need anything, like, we're here for you. We support you. We're going to help you. Didn't know his name, didn't know anything about him. And I asked Christian, I said, man, who's this guy over here? You know what I mean? And he's like, oh, that's a slot director. You know what I mean? Like, he's really important person at Tachi, And I was just like, he just offered for me to come train. And he was like, yeah, you should take him up on that offer, And, I did. I went out there and trained, and I learned how to be tough because I wasn't very tough. You know what I mean? And their type of training wasn't very technical, but you had to learn to be super, super tough. And I learned a lot from training with Poppies and Mickey and Jacob, Mito, all the guys out there. So he was really one of the first people that ever kind of was a part of my mixed martial arts journey at all from ground zero. I mean, Christian obviously being one, Jacob Jeff being 1A. So for him to call and tell me that, it was really something special for me.
Really supporting, and they opened a door for you, gave you an opportunity, and Christian gave you great advice. He wanted to work out with you, and the rest is history. You guys build a friendship, a bond, and here we are.
Yeah, 100%. And there's something to be said about the community at Tachi, the tribe, the casino itself. They invested more blood, sweat, and tears, financial dollars into MMA and the growth of MMA than probably anyone in the country that I could think of. If it wasn't for their investments, both financially and all the hard work that those guys did behind the scenes, and the tribal members keeping that thing going for so many years, the WEC was the very first feeder into the UFC that, the UFC eventually purchased, and which kind of led the way to how shows like Tachi Palace Fights operated and how shows like LFA now operate and Fury Fighting Championship. You know what I mean? They were the very first part of development of athletes. You know what I mean? So to just be a part of that tree, you know what I mean? I talk about coaching trees all the time. You know what I mean? Who's in Bill Belichick's coaching tree and, all this other stuff. Like, I feel like I'm a part of the Tachi tree. You know what I mean? I'm a branch. You know what I mean? Christian is a branch. Jacob Jeff, Rogelio Morales, Mary Moon. You know what I mean? Roxanne Martinez. Everyone there that I worked with. We put on some excellent events, and was just crazy time in history, I guess.
I just remember Joe Soto fighting like on a Tuesday or Thursday, and then getting the call that Monday, Tuesday for the UFC. And, his story is an awesome story. I think, so if you're listening to anybody out there, anybody kind of director, they need to put a movie behind that, because that's a true Rocky story in itself.
Well, and the crazier part of the Joe Soto story is he wasn't, he got when he got picked up to go to the UFC, his first fight ends up being a world title fight. You know what I mean? And which he took on, he came down, he was finished cutting weight. He was getting ready to go to the scales. He was 136 pounds, and it was like, hey, wait, don't go weigh in. We got to talk about something real quick. Can you step in and fight for a world title? Okay, I guess that means I got to go upstairs and cut one more pound. You know what I mean? And he just jams upstairs, leaves Jason and I to do the negotiating, you know what I mean, behind the scenes. And he goes upstairs and cuts the extra pound so that he can fight for a world title.
And put a great account of himself up there. There was a point. I'm looking back at that. I always look back at that. There's a point where Joe's standing with him. He's saying, "Come on, come on." I mean, yeah, great fight.
Joe's one of the best fighters. Joe's one of the best fighters to ever fight.
On the ground, he's a wizard.
On the ground, he's a wizard, but he was tough as nails on the feet too.
Yes, I agree with you. I agree with you. And a cool cat, practical joker. Love Joe Soto. There needs to be more Joe Sotos in the sport, honestly.
100%.
Well, Jeremy, we're moving along. When's your next event? Tell us, how can we follow 559 Fights, and how can we follow you? And when's your next event?
Yeah, January 27th at the Visalia Convention Center. We'll be doing 559 Fights number 103. Headlining that show's Madera, California's Abraham Del Toro. He's taking on Visalia's Tyler Saley. I also have a featherweight title fight, Chris Paez versus Abdul Malik Sayadabulov. And then a flyweight title fight, Ronnie Reyes versus Cyrus Pulver. Really, really big fight card. I believe we have 15 fights locked in right now. Really easy to follow anything for 559 Fights. It's at 559 Fights. Tickets available on Eventbrite. You can also purchase them on our website. We have some really cool VIP packages and some awesome sponsorship packages for local businesses that want to get involved, whether it just be a night out with your team and your coworkers, or if promoting your businesses as well. And then I'm at JLUCHAU at, you know what I mean? That's my app for everything. So really easy to find as well.
Well, Jeremy, I had my first guest of the year, I had Mike Inframowitz from Combate Global. And I said this year, I put a statement out there. I said, the Fighter's Voice is going to do more MMA in 2024. And I honestly mean that. So I'm going to have more MMA guests on the show. There's a whole new world out there that I don't want to say I neglected. It's just boxing was just a great opportunity. And I still love boxing. I still love the sweet science. But there's a lot of MMA people out there that need the platform. And I promise that this platform is for the people, the up-and-coming fighter, the world title fighter, the people behind the scenes. And I was going to dedicate myself even more to that platform. So what day is the 27th on? Is that a Friday or Saturday?
That's a Saturday.
That's a Saturday. Well, Jeremy, I'm going to put in some credentials for that, a credential request. I'd like to have your main event on the show, possibly together, if that works out, if they're okay. But, possibly together. I think that'd be a good thing. We'll sit down and we'll talk about it. And if you're looking in the background right here, you know what it's missing, Jeremy?
I don't know. We need a 559 something.
No, we need a big 559 belt right there. Just standing back here, right here.
Oh, there you go.
It'll be there when I have Regis Prograis, Jose Ramirez, Pet Bull Cruz, any fighters that I have on there, professional fighters, Sean Porter. I'll always be there. Yeah. So I'm just letting you know, something to think about.
All right, I'll look at it.
Okay, see what you can do, man. And if ever your guys on the mic ever get a sore throat, I'll be there at the event, because I plan on covering your events and covering the fighters leading up and making some appearances in the gym, because everybody can show up to the fight, man, but you got to do the groundwork. You got to do the groundwork, build that relationship with trainers and fighters, because a lot of them say, who the hell are you? I don't know who you are. And it's all about trust, as you know.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and I think an excellent person for you to have on your show would be a Joey Perez, you know what I mean? Someone who battled cancer and was out for a long time and is now back, rocking the mic again for us.
That's an amazing story.
You know what I mean? Yes, it's an amazing story, and I think it would be a great story for you to have on your show.
Reach out to him for him. And does he still have the same cell number? I'll reach out to him.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, he does.
Okay, I'm going to do that. He has an amazing story. Cool cat. Very good at what he does, and he just has that. How can I say it? That spark in him. When he's up there, he's having fun. He has that. He has that it factor when he's on the microphone. And
he has a crazy energy to him.
Yeah, he does, and he likes to get excited. Cool cat. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, Jeremy, I want to thank you for being on the show, and I will be attending and covering more of your events. So we'll communicate along the way. Let's start off by that. That main event that you got coming up, and, reach out to Joey for me. I'm going to go ahead and reach out to him myself. And, hey, man, iron sharpens iron. And, the rest is history.
All right, brother. Thank you so much. I appreciate you having me.
One last thing. The platform is yours. Is there anything you want to say to anybody special, or, once again, remind them about your event. The platform is yours.
Yeah, if everyone can, I think people often, there's these arguments and debates always online, right, about like how you support something, you know what I mean? And how you really support these local events, whether it's Valley Fight Series, 559 Fights, A1 Combat, Combate, all these lower level shows. The way you support them is buying tickets and supporting the events. You know what I mean? So purchase your tickets from fighters. Purchase your tickets. Come out, enjoy a night of fights. You know what I mean? And that's the best way that you could ever support any of these athletes, especially at our show. A large majority of our dollars are spent on giving right back to the athlete, and by that I mean paying for athletes' medicals, licensing, travel, hotel rooms, meals, gloves and shin guards, all these things, trying to provide for these guys so that they could have bigger and better opportunities. So $40 ticket goes a long way to helping some of these guys' careers, and it's a great night of fights for everybody.
I can agree with you more. And, also subscribing is free, guys. So if you have not subscribed to the YouTube channel, it's www.youtube.com/thefightersvoice. Remember, every fighter has a voice, and so do you. And it's a wrap. Thumbs up for Richie.
Okay, fight fans, it's not goodbye, but until next week. Remember, it's always voiceography at its finest. So on behalf of Richard Ortiz, the special guests, Fuego babies, and always thanks for listening.